My name's Hal. We're going to talk about Mason Holgate. We might talk about a whole lot else. If you're watching live, you can get involved, drop your comments in, let me know what you think. Maybe not just about this signing, but about the whole of the January transfer window, and maybe if this does give us any hope towards the end of the season. We'll look at this transfer in detail first, then we'll get to some of your thoughts. But Mason Holgate, the Blades have signed on loan Everton's 6-foot Mason Anthony Holgate. He's 27. When I first started doing videos on him, I think he was about 22. He'll be 28 in October. He's Doncaster born, former Barnsley player, of course, played at West Bromwich Albion. A defender, right-footed centre-back. He can also play right-back. So the first question I have for you, will this herald the return, or at least the option of a return to a back three or a back five, whichever you want to call it? And if so, where does it leave our defenders? What would be your first choice three at the back? Now, Anel, the captain, didn't leave in January in that transfer window, despite some pretty serious rumours. I mean, there was a lot of papers reporting interest, and who knows, maybe even an offer from Serie A side Napoli. So Anel remains. Holgate, do you think right centre-back? Is Anel going to play in the centre if we go back three? And would that leave Jack Robinson, Trusty, Reece Norrington-Davies? It's going to be interesting because many people will say that Anel's best form, certainly pre-glandular fever, was when he was playing right-sided centre-back. But then who do you play in the centre? So let me know your thoughts on that. Pop them in the comments. Mason Holgate, if you look at the positives, and I am always trying to look at as many positives as is humanly possible whenever we talk about new signings, what's he good at? What are his kind of main areas that you want to focus on when you talk about good attributes? Well, he is quick. I don't think anyone can dispute that. He's aggressive. He's been described on a number of comments I've read, on his best day, as being very brave, a tough tackler who's decent in the air. Now, there are concerns, quite a lot of them, from Toffees fans on a few different areas of his game. But one that I want to focus on, I've spoken to an Everton fan just a few moments ago who said to me, he's quite injury prone. Now, I'm going to look at his injury records. It doesn't necessarily back that up, but nor does it really dissuade that. It's more of a kind of, I would say, average amount of injuries, certainly for a player who's been playing as long as he has. And he's been playing at the highest level for about 8 years. But, injury prone, these are words that United fans do not want to hear, because we've had our fair share of injuries and beyond our fair share of injuries in the past 2 seasons. And this is just a loan without an option to buy. So you have to assume that Chris Wilder has brought his man in to play and to play regularly. So Mason Holgate's injury record looks like this. We go back to 2017-18 season. He got an ankle injury that kept him out for 54 days. He recovered. He then got a calf injury that kept him out for over 2 weeks. He then got a recurrence of that calf injury a whole year later. He then in 2020-21 had another ankle injury, and that kept him out for 50 days. He then in 22-23 season was again out for 50 days, but this time with a knee injury. Now, Mason has been on loan this season at Championship side Southampton, where he only made 7 appearances in all competitions, so 5 in the league, 2 in the cup. His debut wasn't particularly pretty. I think they lost 5-0. Might have been that one I was looking at highlights of a little earlier. I've watched a lot in the last few hours of very little sleep. But he comes into a team with a manager that clearly wants him. And I'll admit, we've seen that before with Chris Wilder. He loves the chase. Ricky Holmes, Samir Carruthers, and others that you can think of that haven't always necessarily worked out. But, some have. Some have done enough to get us over the line. James Hansen, for example. On this occasion, the getting over the line is trying to stay up rather than get promotion. And it looks like it's going to be an extremely tall order. But Chris Wilder has said, you assume, to the hierarchy, here's what I want, get it for me. And also, Mason Holgate, he knows the Davos, Tom Davies from Everton and Adam Davies from Barnsley. So that's maybe going to help him assimilate a little bit quicker and get used to at least a couple of his teammates. They can introduce him to others. In positive news, when we look back, Holgate was Everton's Players' Player of the Year. I always think Players' Player of the Year means the most. That was under Carlo Ancelotti in 2020. And Ancelotti used to primarily use him as a centre-back, but also deployed him in defensive midfield. I'm thinking a la John Stones. Played him in defensive midfield at times. And Mason rewarded Cuddly Carlo's faith with his best displays in an Everton shirt. And in total, for Everton, it's been 149 appearances with 5 goals. Now, that form under Carlo Ancelotti led to a huge salary increase with a contract that runs out on the 30th of June 2025. And it is a wonder to me, and I really want your thoughts on this, that we have seemingly agreed to cover the wages. Now, we don't know if it's the full wages, a percentage of the wages, maybe just a very small portion. I don't know. We haven't been allowed into that kind of information. It's probably fair that fans don't know that kind of detail. I mean, it's actually kind of amazing that you do know, in some cases, how much footballers earn. They don't know how much we as fans earn that are sat there in the same stadium. But Connor Price 666 on the cesspit that is Twitter, or X if you prefer, said, if we're actually paying Holgate's extortionate wages, which in turn is helping Everton with their financial fair play, we are a joke. But to bring in our old friend Billy Balance, Blade Sam 1983 said, right, we've signed him. Mason, fresh start, clean slate, give your all, and I hope Wilder can do to you what he did to Basham up the Blades. What do you make of this signing? Let me know in the comments below. Paul Merson, yeah, him. What's he got to do with Everton or Sheffield United or West Brom or Barnsley? I mean, he knows the Midlands briefly. I guess he was manager at Walsall, but that's by the by. He has questioned why Everton are allowing Mason Holgate to join Sheffield United on loan. Here is what he said. It might just be a case of them having to do it to keep settling the books. He said this to Sky Sports. That's the way things are at the moment. If Sheffield United finish above Everton, let's be honest, then of course they deserve to go down. I don't think it looks like being a threat to them. No disrespect. If I was Mason Holgate, I would rather go to one of the top four in the Championship and be in a winning team and having a chance of going up. Being at Sheffield United, it'll help him become a better defender, as he'll be doing it a lot more. That's the quote from Paul Merson, a fairly derogatory and derisory set of words that Paul has shared there. Probably no real surprise. I don't put too much stock in what Paul Merson thinks about anything. He was, Mason Holgate, at a team that you would have said would be challenging for promotion, and it didn't work out. But we'll get to that because Mason Holgate has since conducted his first interview with SUTV. He has described us as a massive club. We'll forgive him using that word. He also stated that Chris Wilder was a huge reason for him joining, that Wilder had faith in him and believes in him, saying, quote, I've known the gaffer for a long time, playing against United teams all the way through from when I was at Barnsley in League One to when I was in the Championship at West Brom to the Premier League. I've played against his teams and always had tough games against them. Wilder has told Mason exactly what he wants him to do, apparently, and said what he can bring to the team. Now, Mason's also said he's been waiting all month to get this deal over the line. And of course, it was a bit complicated involving three teams. He's also said he can't wait to get going. He stated he wants to come in and help the boys, how he knows the Premier League. But he did speak about Southampton. And here's what he said. Things don't always work out the way you want them to be. I had a tough time. That's fair. He's being honest. It didn't work out. We've all had that. We've had that in work, relationships, all sorts. But he did add he feels good, sharp, and he feels as ready as he can, claiming he's played enough games to stay both fit and fresh. Well, we'll see on that one, because the Premier League, it's an unforgiving league. If you're not 100% at it, and we've seen all too well to our cost in multiple matches this season, you've got to be 100%, arguably for 120 minutes, it feels like, in every single game. On belief in the camp, Mason said, I've been in these positions before. The last 2 years with Everton, people had wrote us off, and we came back. A couple of wins can change everything. I hope this is something I can come in and help the boys with. Now, here's the interesting one. On playing in a back four or a back three, he said, I've played pretty much all across the back line. Definitely see myself as a centre-back, so I can play in a 4 or a 5. It's all the same to me. I just want to get in and get playing and try and help. Okay, all the right words. Andrew has said a bit underwhelming this signing, but clearly someone Wilder has tracked for a long period of time. Let's see what the lad's made of. And you know what? Let's get behind him, Chef Paul. Hopefully Chris Wilder can get a tune out of him, and he will play better now he's returned home to South Yorkshire. Seems like he's been brought in for versatility, which is fine by me. I hope he does well. I think this Jan window for a club that hasn't got a lot to spend has been okay. Not amazing, but okay. Sad to see Fleck slide out the door. Now, let's just, on that, I am really sad that John Fleck has gone. Not really now so much. He should have gone at the right time with a way that we could all say thank you. But so often when I interview players, we say you very rarely get a chance to say thank you. And, you know, Fleck had gone after scoring at the end of last season, it would have just been perfect. And if we'd known he was leaving, if he'd said this is going to be my last season, like everyone seems to do in Formula One or in managerial positions, but it didn't work like that. And I don't really think giving him another contract necessarily was the right idea. I think that could have been used, that money, elsewhere. I think it'd have been nice to blood Brooks earlier. I actually think the player we brought in, Sam Curtis, would be one I'd like to see blooded while we've been talking about a defender, all the way through this. And actually, why bring in these players? Because realistically, if you're not going to give them a chance to show what they can do in a season that realistically is completely over, then, when can you? But I'll continue reading this. Sad to see Flecky slide out the door without any fanfare or chance for the fans to say thank you. Thanks for the memories, John. But I also think the reason I was going to mention that is that let's imagine this happened really late. I think it did. I think it was one of those that it wasn't necessarily planned. Perhaps the bid came in late and the club thought, we can get him off the books. We can wish him well. He's been a great servant with us, but it is time. And you can't just say, well, we'll hold off on that so we can give him a proper goodbye at the end of the season. It is sadly the way it's worked out. And hopefully we'll get a chance to see John Fleck at beautiful downtown Bramall Lane again, be it either playing against us or just he comes back and Gary Sinclair brings him out at half time and we can all sort of serenade him with one of the best songs any player's ever had. And I won't sing it right now. It's Family Channel. My worry is that this is either the end of Robbo, interesting, or even worse, another 5 million wasted on Trusty alongside Traore since Wilder came back. I'll be honest with Austin Trusty. He did look a lot better previously. I'm not saying since Wilder's come in. He's had some good games under Wilder, but he's had some really shaky moments recently, and I am slightly concerned, but I just don't think he's a left back. I know he has played there before, or even played against us for Birmingham, but I think he is a centre back, and I do think he'll come good and he'll get better again, Trusty. Because I think we saw enough from him when he first got into the team to show he had a bit about him. Dublin Blade, always remember getting served a pint in Barrel after beating Chesterfield in 100-point season. Billy and Bash behind the bar as well. What absolutely incredible memories. And you know what? We say goodbye to Fleck. There's only Basham left from those times, and really they were great times. It's only right that we remember Flecky in the right way. There'll be more on this channel. We'll talk about Flecky at another time in greater detail. I want to thank all of you that have watched this one. Let me know your thoughts, some of those questions I've posed. Let's get behind the lads. Let's get behind Mason Holgate and see what we can do for the rest of this season. It'll be over soon.